G'day and welcome to a Down Under Yarn. Today is Tuesday the 29th of July 2014. I am your host Fiona, also known as Fifykins. If you find someone on the YouTubes called Fifykins, it's probably me. Okay, this is episode number 77 of a Down Under Yarn. I'm also the dyer behind Flair Fibres. Yes, I'm out of practice. It seems like it's been forever. It's definitely been a couple of weeks. It's been a rough few weeks, no doubt about that, but today I'm going to focus on the highlights of those weeks. If you're waiting on orders from me, you'll be receiving a message in message either today or tomorrow. I'm not going into it here, but there's been some tough times. There's also been some fantastic times, which is what I want to focus on today. Now, I've just recorded the shop update section of the podcast because I thought that's all I'd have time for. However, partway through that, I had a message from Imogen saying, "No, Mum, you don't pick me up at 2:30. The thing I was at finished at 1:30. I'm back at school now. I've got to stay till the end of school." And I'm like, okay, so I could have actually recorded a whole podcast from start to finish. Anyway, hey, I'm here now. I can record, so that's fantastic. I'm glad that we get to spend some time together. It has been too long, and sometimes I think that perhaps I should have just sucked it all up and thought, I'm putting this shocking day behind me, putting the crap stuff that's happened behind me and just getting out and recording, because I know that it's something that I do that I enjoy doing. But still, it is what it is, and I'm here now. First good thing that happened was the Cairns show. That was almost 2 weeks ago, so I didn't record. It must be 3 weeks since I recorded. Oh, wow. Anyway, it's a Cairns show, and I entered a number of things and won a number of prizes. I was absolutely shocked, but there you go. So what I thought I would show you. Now these are going to be in no random order. They are going to be in a very random order because I have. It's got to go with that because they're just in my basket here. So these are all in the Fibre Crafters section. Now the Cairns show has two different sections for knitting, I suppose. There is the Fibre Crafters section and then what is called the craft section, knitting and crochet, which is basically the CWA section, Country Women's Association. So this year I entered everything in the Fibre Crafters section. Last year I entered stuff in both. But I entered stuff in this one because I was told to do that by the Fibre Crafters ladies, and they said, well, the prize money's more. I said, I'm not entering to win prizes, but still it meant that everything was in the one place, so that's good. So this was the Other Techniques single effort. So it was a handcrafted article or garment using 3 different techniques. This was my hat. I got 3rd place for this, which I was pretty stoked about. I dyed the yarn, spun the yarn, and then knitted the hat. So that was that one. I have my Susanna IC Mystery Shawl. I've still got all my pins on here. This one I received 3rd place in the Other Techniques single effort handcrafted article or garment, knitted or crocheted from any yarn. I got 3rd for that. This is the category I think I was most proud of because there were 28 entries. And I got 1st, 2nd and 3rd, which kind of surprised me because there are some other fantastic craftspeople around. So that was that one. Then the 2nd place was for my skew socks. Sorry, you only get cards for most of them. So that was the skew socks, got 2nd place. And 1st place went to my Stephen West Mystery Shawl from last year. So, yeah. And went out to dinner with the judge after she judged, before we knew any of the results. And she said she was really, really impressed with the quality of the work. That was before I found out that I'd swept the board on that. I also got 2 highly commendeds in that section. I think I was the only... No, there was one other highly commended. Because I thought at the time, for me to get 5 awards in the one section, I got a highly commended for my... What's this one called again? My wave shawl. I call it my wave shawl. So that was that one, and a highly commended for, it's floating right down the bottom here, isn't it? Yes. because I put it in my basket first. There it is. Highly commended for my Twisting Paths, I want to say. Crooked Paths beret. I can't remember what it's called now. It's in my projects anyway. So that was that one. Handcrafted article or garment. Then in the spinning. I've been spinning for a little over 12 months. And there was a lack of entries. However, as the judge said, in some of the categories where there weren't many entries, she only awarded highly commended certificates. She did not give placings because the craft was not up to the standard she was expecting. So when I found out that I'd got first prize in the spinning, I was pretty astonished. So this was my Merino Angora Cashmere Glitz. This is how you had to present it. You had to have a sample of the fibre, a knitted up swatch. You can see the swatch there when it was knitted up. So I'm really, really pleased with that because I think I'm going to knit a cowl using this now because it's so beautiful. It really is pretty, and it's sort of a sport to fingering weight. So, yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. And then the other one was that was in mixed fibre. Then you had to have 100% animal fibre. And this was the BFL. And again, there's the swatch for it, which is quite nice. No idea what I'm going to do with this. I'm thinking a hat, but I'm not too sure. And so it's 100% BFL. And again, first prize. Then the dyeing. And again, I kind of swept the floor on the dyeing as well. I got first, second and third. And as someone said to me, well, it's kind of would be a bit embarrassing if you didn't win prizes in the dyeing. And I thought, well, yeah, I got second prize last year in the dyeing. But to get first, second and third kind of blew me away. So this was the first place. This was a club colourway earlier in the year. So that was the first prize. The second prize went to the Happy Accident. And the third prize went to the Merino Silk DK in the Wine Dregs colourway. The three of those I will be working up in the next 12 months because I can enter them in a category next year. My biggest surprise, however, was I was awarded the Cairns Show 2014 Gladys and Ray Brown Perpetual Award for Effort. So I got a trophy and I got a sash. So there we are. Now I discovered that apparently Gladys and Ray Brown were a couple who were involved in the fibre crafters for a very long time. Ray is a wood turner and Gladys is a crafter extraordinaire. And she wanted an award that showed a variety of talents and recognised people who tried almost everything. And for me, this year, because I did dyeing and I did spinning and I did knitting and knitted different things, and knitted lace as well, I qualified and I was the person who won that award. So I'm totally blown away, and yeah, so I'm very grateful, and I'm hoping to go down and meet both Gladys and Ray. They live about 20 minutes, half an hour south of here now, and I want to go down and meet them and thank them for giving this award and letting them know that it's very much appreciated, and also to see what tips she's got, because apparently she's a master spinner and weaver and all sorts of stuff like that. So there we go. So I have a trophy, which is, you know, I was one of the kids at school that never got trophies. I never did sport really, so I always missed out on trophies. So to actually have a trophy, it's pretty exciting. In the part that comes after this with the shop update, I talk about the neighbours on both sides doing renovations, and one of the reasons I didn't want to record, but that's okay, I'm doing that now. So, I'm just going to pop these back in here. I'm limited on space. Finished objects. Let's go into the craft. Finished objects. I finished my Bendigo mitts. Now these were actually finished at Bendigo and kept me warm, which was the idea behind them, on the Saturday, which was the day that I went to the show proper. Bendi is my second thing. So I'll go into the knitting first, then talk about Bendi. These are a pattern I made up myself, just a vanilla mitt pattern. It is using the amazing the Cyborg Craft Room, her worsted weight, in the isn't this just the most beautiful colour? I love the way it just, oh, it's beautiful. I did start off doing a slip stitch pattern up here, but it just wasn't showing. And I thought, you know, a vanilla stockinette mitt is never going to go straight. So these are fantastic. I did think about making them a bit longer, but I like the way that when I go like that, they don't have to try and go around me. So there we go. And they kept me plenty warm. And I can always pull them down if I need to when my hands are straight. And I know that they will stretch as well. If they were also longer, they would have covered my pinkies, and I don't like that. So that is those. So that is that finished object. I also have some finished spinning. Of course, Tour de Fleece was on. I don't feel like I did very well at Tour de Fleece. However, I do know that I've spun a lot more in the last 3 to 4 weeks than I have the rest of the year. So that's been an achievement. I mean, I spun up the merino that I did the hat in for the show. I finished spinning the XL, which won the first prize, the Merino Angora Cashmere Glitz. So, yeah. I have a finished object here. It's just so poorly presented at the moment. This was my first attempt at long draw. And it is Rambouillet, my first attempt at spinning Rambouillet as well. I spun it over the fold. I broke it off into little chunks. When I tied it up, I just tied the ends in with that bit there, and it's popped out in the thing. So that's what that is. The thing I like most about this is, look at this spring. Look at that spring in it. I think that apparently that's a lot to do with the Rambouillet fibre, but it's also the worsted spinning. So the woolen spinning at least. Now semi-woolen because it was a worsted prep. So there you have it there. It is into the wool, into the world at least. Into the world in the Mithendeer colourway, which was a club colourway. I thought when I looked at it, I thought, oh, because it was so thick and thin, because it was my first attempt at a woolen spin, I thought, oh, it's just, I don't know what I'm going to do with it. Then a friend of mine saw a photo of it up on Facebook, and she goes, mine. I said, what? And she goes, for Belle's blanket. Now, another mutual friend of ours is having a baby, and this friend of mine does the most amazing crochet, and she uses anything and everything to crochet, and she's doing a green blanket for our mutual friend. Now, what she does is she does a huge granny square, and there we are. Anyway, floppy skeins, everyone, floppy skeins. She does a huge granny square, but she uses all sorts of fibre. So she actually uses fun furs and things that she picks up in op shops. She repurposes jumpers. She does everything. And she said that something like this will just go really, really nicely in it. So that is going to go to her to put in the blanket. The other spinning I have finished. I'm ready to ply the roll eggs that I got from Nicole C. Mendez. Now these were a lot easier to long draw because they were the roll eggs. Again, there's some thick and thin parts, but I'm looking forward to plying them together and seeing what happens with them. I love the way the roll eggs hide what's in the middle, because the outside was one colour, but inside there were so many different variations of colour. It was really, really, really exciting. So that is going to be happening sometime soonish. I might even do that probably tomorrow, because tonight is going to be taken up now with editing this and getting stuff ready for tomorrow's shop update. Works in progress. Other works in progress. I have the Magic Ball shawl, which is a bunny fish design. I've done a couple more repeats on this. It's still not looking that long, but I love it. I really, really love it. It is the most beautiful little lacy part, and now that I've done a few more, you can see it as it opens up along the top edge there. So this is a magic ball, which was put together with a group of us. We all threw in a skein of yarn, and the theme was green, anything to do with green. And you can see here there's some ready bits that are going to come together. So at the moment I'm using a self-striping yarn, which is the green and the blue. And there's also a brown and green yarn as well on the opposite stripe. So Magic Ball is just all knotted together. I think there's 7 or 8 different colourways in there, and I will get through to the end of that, and of course alternating every couple of rows. So that is that. It's on straight needles only because that was all I could find at the time when I really wanted to start it. I was talked into it, you know, the peer pressure. The second thing I'm working on, that's right, This is the second thing. This is my Zombie Apocalypse Tubularity, and I've actually made quite a bit of progress. This was my main Bendigo knitting. I started off with the Undead Winifred, which was from Marigold Jen. You can see it's got sparkles in it. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it does have sparkles in it. I knit that. Now, Tubularity is a Martina Bem pattern, and you knit the first section back and forth, and then the rest of it's kind of knit in the bias. It is the most amazing purse knitting because you can just put it down and pick it up and work out where you are. So that is good. So then I went into, once I joined it, I added in the Dancing Dog Dye Works in the Zombie Party in Rochester colourway, which is just phenomenal. Absolutely amazing. It's just, when you look at it, when I was knitting it, I'm going, and it's just, there's bits of rainbows, but it's no real, there is a rhyme and a reason to it. But the way it's put together, it means that you get quite a bit of the red and orange, then you get these beautiful teal pops through it. Oh, it's just gorgeous. And just yesterday, last night, I started on the 716 knits in the I Feel an Attack of the Dumb Blondes coming on. So that is my third colourway. This is mainly purse knitting, although as I discovered today, if you don't put the needles through enough, you drop stitches. And when I did that over the end, it's meant that I had to pick up, anyway, I've done it. And I did it and I survived. So that is the main thing. You can see this is the little ball I have here. I've got on my project page how much I've used. I put in how much each ball weighed when I started, and now I'm putting in, once I finished, how much I used. I could have gone on and on and on with that if I could have. I just took off 5 grams because I knew I wanted to add a square to my sock yarn blanket. So that is a fairly good segue into my sock yarn blanket. Now, the Commonwealth Games are on. For those who are not in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, or any of the other Commonwealth countries, Britain, etc., the Commonwealth Games are held every 4 years in the, I suppose, the off year to the Olympics. And they are when the Commonwealth countries, which is, they used to be the Empire Games, so the old British Empire, the countries get together. Now, they don't necessarily have to be still part of the British monarchy. For instance, South Africa is part of it now. And they get together. It's in Glasgow in Scotland at the moment. And there is the most fantastic group, the Ravelwealth Games. And the rules are that there are no rules. So you can do what you like. There's no prizes. There's no nothing. It's just a fun way to get together and do stuff. I'm hoping to finish off a couple of projects. But if I don't, it's not going to matter. One of the things, though, is that they try and encourage some sledging, which is when you have a go at New Zealanders, because Australians are really, really good at that. We hate New Zealand except when they're playing France, basically. Australians usually barrack for 2 teams, Australia and anyone playing New Zealand. There you go. So Australia and New Zealand are both in the Commonwealth Games. I foolishly said on the first day, forgetting how well Australia does at these games, because there's no Russia, no China, no America, that I would knit a square on my sock yarn blanket for every gold medal. When I woke up the first night and I think we'd won 6 medals, I thought, ugh. And when I woke up the second night and we'd won 9, I think we're now up to 20 odd. And I'm thinking, yeah, not going to happen. Not going to happen. No, 30. Was it 30? And I thought, and that's after, what, 4 or 5 days. So that's not going to happen. But that's okay because there's no rules. So my sock yarn blanket, which I have pulled out. This is the front here. So you've seen most of it before. I'm still going along the bottom edge. I put this down for quite a while. I think the last one you probably saw was around here. So I have done along here some different skeins, and some of these are ones that people gave me. Here I am in the middle of my first big square. So I did these 3. These are all Commonwealth Games ones, and then I am doing my first big square. Now the first big square is in Yarn vs Zombies in the Panda base. I can't remember what the colourway was called, but it was the first ever solid dyed yarn that I came across, and that's what got me interested in solid dyeing. So it's a very precious skein, and I made sure I had enough left over to put in here. So yeah, it's a beautifully dyed, beautiful colourway. So at the moment, it is almost a wingspan, which is, actually it's not. It's that much of it's a wingspan to there, to my shoulder. I have a king size bed. I'm thinking I'm going to go crazy and have it so that it covers the top of the bed, not down the sides, just over the top. But we'll see. I don't know how I'm going to go. So that is that. I think that's all I've been working on. Now I can go on to Bendi. Bendi was fantastic. I flew down on the Thursday morning. We had the Cairns show on the Wednesday, where I was at. Cairns show is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I was there on the Wednesday. I did a bit of a demonstration, spinning demonstration on the Wednesday evening. On the Wednesday afternoon. And then caught the 5:45 flight out of Cairns on the Thursday morning. So then got to Brisbane at about 7-ish and then caught a 9 o'clock flight down to Melbourne. So I got into Melbourne about 11:30. The flight was delayed, taking off, and then was it that one? One of them we had a missed approach, which was quite scary. I was half asleep, and then suddenly you hear this because you've almost landed, and you got up, and we got up. I was coming into Brisbane actually, and then we got up, and you could see us banking, and we were really banking, and I'm thinking, okay, this is fine. There's not an issue. There's not a problem. And Captain, it was actually the first officer, comes on and goes, "First officer here. Sorry about that, passengers, ladies and gentlemen. However, the plane that was in front of us did not get off the runway fast enough. I believe words have been spoken, but we're going to have to go around again. And because we now have a few planes in front of us, we're going to be delayed." So, hey, it didn't worry me. I had plenty of time to catch my connecting flight, so that was all good. Got to Melbourne, picked up a hire car, and then got on the road to Bendigo. Got out to Bendigo and it was cold. It was freezing. It was lovely. I loved it. The day I arrived, there was snow in the, I suppose, the higher areas surrounding Melbourne, which is pretty unheard of. I know if I'd gone out to my mother's house and gone up the Dandenongs, I don't think there was snow up the Dandenongs, but anyway, there was snow in Daylesford, which I could have driven through, and I thought, I'm being stupid. If I want to drive a hire car through snow, and I'm not used to driving through snow to begin with. Now, when we're talking snow, we're talking a dust covering on the ground. We're not talking inches and inches of snow. This is Australian snow, people. Anyway, got out to Bendigo and headed straight for the Woolen Mills, because that's what you do when you go to Bendigo. Get out of the car, and it was sort of trying to drizzle, get inside, and suddenly it's a hailstorm. And there was only little tiny bits of hail. But I hadn't seen a hailstorm for 20 years. So to be in a tin shed, basically, at the back in the back room, where there's hail, it was just pretty fantastic. So, was out there. Didn't actually buy anything at the Woolen Mills. Out in the back room, I think the people I was staying with, they'd been there before me and found all the good stuff. The other stuff was sort of, they had 50-gram balls, and I could have got like equivalent to 1.5 skeins worth, but at about the same price as I could have bought the 1.5 skeins, or I would have had to buy 2 skeins, 2 big balls, because they had 200-gram balls. I did buy some stuff for a friend, and was able to take it out to her last week and give it to her, which was lovely. So, I would love to know what the neighbours are doing. It's not next door, it's the one's behind there, and that's been sold recently. So I don't know what they're doing in there. I suspect they're pulling up the bathroom or the kitchen or something. But it's been like that for a while. Sorry about the noise. Anyway, so I went there. I then stopped at the shops. So you can imagine it was freezing. The car said that I think it was 3 degrees outside, which for me was just really, really cold. I'm looking up there at sort of about 35 in Fahrenheit. You're probably all laughing, going, you're crazy woman. That's not winter. But to me, that's winter. And I went into the supermarket to get some supplies, mainly chocolate. And when I came out, I needed the toilet. So I said to the cashier, I said, "Oh, is there a public toilet nearby?" And she goes, "Yeah, you just go straight through the car park and you'll see the public toilets." And she smiled. And I just thought, that's nice, she's being polite. I got there. It is 3 degrees, and they are those steel toilets that don't have a seat on them. So needless to say, it was fresh and it was quick. And I didn't Instagram it. I was going to, but it was too cold. I had to get out of there and get back in the car. Did that. We stay out at Lake Eppalock, which is just beautiful. It's about half an hour to Bendigo, but it's on the lake. I'd missed the kangaroos, and for the rest of the weekend I think it was too cold for them to come down to the water. But the bird life out there is totally different to the bird life here, so I hear different sounds. I was going to record out there, but we had too much fun. And, lots of wine was consumed, open fires, and just a chilled time. And I needed it as well because I'd had a really rough lead up to Bendigo, and I knew that when I came home there was still going to be some stuff happening. So that was really good. Excuse me. Oh, pardon me. Oh, thank you. I can hear all the bless yous. On the Friday, Bendigo has the wool show proper, the Australian Sheep and Wool Show, which runs on the Friday, Saturday and Sunday. There is also the Fibre Muster, which is organised by You Give Me the Knits and Nanny's Spin on Things, Mandy and Janet. And they do the most amazing job, and that's held at the Bowls Club near the showgrounds. It's a gold coin to get in there, and they have about 8 or 9 vendors, and it's a really relaxed atmosphere. And they have tables set up so you can just sit down and knit. And my plan on the Friday was to head there. I knew I was meeting up with people at about 2ish, so I was going to head there, spend most of the time there, and then head to the Ravelry dinner they had organised. So I got there with the people I was staying with. We then went back into town to go and have some lunch. They went back. They actually went and got tattoos done. So it was anyway. Then I went back to the muster, caught up with people, knitted for the afternoon, got a migraine, went back to the place they were staying at, which was in town, and I said, I'm going to have to go and lie down for half an hour, and did. Fortunately, I'd had 2 lots of migraine medication that day, and neither of them had kicked in properly. So it was one of those half migraines where I knew it was there, but at the same time, I figured because I was overtired, and fortunately, half an hour, 45 minutes of sleep was enough to kick it enough for me to be able to function at dinner. Went to dinner, and then had to leave that early, unfortunately. Met some fantastic people there, old and new friends. It was funny. There's a group of us sitting around. I got to meet Joyce and give Joyce a hug. So Joyce is real. It's fantastic. She said to me, "You're real." And it was just really good. And did that. Excuse me. Okay, so this is now the 27th part. That was the school ringing. I've got parent-teacher interviews tonight, and they just ring to let me know that one of the teachers isn't there, and it's a teacher that I can catch up with any time, so it's all good. Anyway, it means I'm going to have 10 minutes in the middle of it, which is not going to bother me at all. It's going to be great. So, where was I? I was at the Ravelry dinner. That's right, and I had to leave early. Anyway, no, I'm sitting there with Joyce, and a lady comes in, we're sitting there knitting in a back room at a pub, and she goes, "Is this the Ravelry meetup?" And I said, "We are your people. Come in." So it was just lovely, and it felt like that. People who I hadn't met before, people I had met last year. It's just really, really, really great atmosphere. So then I had to pick up another friend who was coming up from Melbourne on the train, picked her up, and we went out to Lake Epilogue and had some more wine. Quite a bit of wine was consumed over the weekend, let's just say. And then on the Saturday, I went to the wool show proper. I didn't have a lot of money to spend at the show, and you'll see that with my acquisitions. So didn't buy a lot, spent a lot of time walking around, caught up with people, caught up with one friend I hadn't seen for ages, like 7 years we worked it out, and his wife, who I'd never met before, who I've been chatting to for 8 or 9 years via the Twitters, etc., and she's recently started crafting, and their daughter, who I'd never met before, who thought I was a lady from the telly, which was just so cute. And she thought she was going to a place called Fifikins because she'd been told she was going to see Fifikins. And she goes, "When are we getting to Fifikins?" So that was very cute. So it was lovely catching up with them. Caught up with other people. Went back down to the muster for the podcaster meetup. So I'd met Holly. I ran into Holly in one of the sheds, and I was able to meet Amelia, and she's just so beautiful, so gorgeous. And Holly's hubby, kind of met him, and I'd caught up with Kiki and Nitty Witty Shell and a couple of other people. I shouldn't start naming people because I know I'm going to forget people I've seen. So caught up with a lot of people. It was really, really good. this can probably lead into acquisitions. I've got some other stuff that's been acquired that has shown up, which I'm not going to show this week, because that'll give me something to show next week. Let's start down at the muster. No. Yes. And this can then go, that's going to then, that's the trouble when you're recording something and you've got lots of different things happening at the same time. So down at the muster, you give me the knits. Unfortunately, Mandy couldn't be there this year, which was a real shame because Mandy is just so much fun. But she sent one of her helpers along with a whole lot of stock that she needed to shift, so she had discounts on it, which was just phenomenal. So this is, you give me the knits Retro Rainbow in the Merino Bamboo, Retro Rainbow colourway. It's a Merino Bamboo colour blend. So I don't really want to take it out of the plastic, but you can kind of see it through there. This will no doubt become a a chain plied yarn. The other one I got was the Northern Lights in the Merino Silk Milk. So they're both similar colourways, and I probably could spin them together as a 2-ply, but I don't think I'm going to. I might muddy a bit too much. So that is those two. I also picked up from Mandy, where is it? Here. 2 skeins of sock yarn, because a girl can never have too much sock yarn, and sock yarn's not stash, you know the rules. This one here, she doesn't actually have colourways on it. It's the, you give me the knits, Grande sock yarn, 80% superwash merino, 20% nylon, 4-ply, approximately 390 metres. And this one here, which is a gorgeous sort of reds and almost purpley colourway, which might become a shawl. And this one here, which I loved, which is sort of greys and pinks, which I think will probably become some socks. So that's what I picked up. Oh no, excuse me. Only other thing I picked up at the muster was this. Now, I've done some research and discovered it is from Candlebark Country Socks. And Lisa is at the muster and was there last year, and I hope she'll be there next year. Lisa hand knits socks and sells them for a ridiculously cheap price. And I'm saying like $40, $50. And I said to her, you know, if I had someone I had to knit for who I didn't think was that knitworthy, I'd rather buy a pair of socks from her than do that. Now, she had these kits with 2 balls of hand-dyed 5-ply pure Corridale sock yarn kit. So it's got 2 50-gram balls of yarn, and I did check what colourway it was, and I can't remember. It's on her site. So it's 2 50-gram balls, so you can do 2 at a time socks. It's already there. It is 5-ply, hand-dyed 5-ply. So I'm going to do 2, what am I going to do? I'm going to do 2 at a time socks with this, using my normal 2.5mm needle, even though it's a thicker yarn, to give a denser fabric. Now, it's not superwash either. She showed a pair of socks that she knit for herself last year that she said she wears in her boots most days, and they were slightly felted on the bottom, but still an amazing knit. And with it, she had other kits as well, but this was the sock kit that I really wanted. She has a couple of different sock patterns with different rib patterns on there, which is great if you're not used to knitting socks. She was willing to talk to people about using DPNs, knitting in the round, and really, really lovely. So I'm really glad I was able to support her. So I got these 250 grams for $20, and I figure you just can't go wrong. I'm not sure I'm going to get show notes up. If you really want some information on where to get the kits from, message me and I will get back to you. So that was what I got at the muster. Then at the show, I went there knowing I wanted to get some Ixel Bunny fibre, because I loved spinning up the Ixel Bunny this year. And I thought I was going to try and get some lace weight yarn to knit a stole I want to knit. And then and then as I got in there, I'm thinking, why am I going to buy lace weight yarn when I can dye some myself? Then I thought, no, look, if I see it, I'll buy some. So I'd seen some that someone had bought the day before, and it was actually a commercial yarn. But people there were selling commercial yarn. There was someone there selling Peyton's and Claqueton and all that sort of stuff, and it was crowded around. I'm thinking, honey, you can just go to Spotlight or Lincraft to get that. But still, and then I thought, well, you know, people go there and inspired to create things, and if that's what they want to buy, that's what they want to buy. So good luck to them. So I went and saw the amazing Charlie at Ixel Bunny, and got a Magic Bunny braid. This is organic merino, angora, cashmere, and rainbow glitz. Now, I went there wanting to get a lace weight. I came away with this thinking I want to spin this up into a 2-ply light fingering type weight that I can then knit something beautiful and lacy with. This is just beautiful. Oh, it is just gorgeous. So that is that. Then I went into the next shed and ran into Kiki from Yarn vs Zombies. And as we were chatting, she showed me what she'd bought. She goes, look. And I went, oh. So I kind of succumbed. I went up to one of the other sheds and found a company called Ren and Ollie, who I had never heard of before. And she is now based in Adelaide doing bumps and bats. She had roll eggs as well. This is the bump I got. Now I'm glad I'm actually recording this during the day, but you can see the gorgeous colours in that. That's the end of it there. There is purple, there is grey, there is this amazing, it's almost a turquoisey, that's almost a turquoise. It's not really coming up as turquoisey as it is. There's a darker blue in there. There's another purple. I'm really looking forward to spinning this up. And this is what all my money went on. And I spent more than I thought I was going to spend. In that I was lucky when I got back to drop the car off, they'd taken the money out of my account. They put a hold on the money, so I couldn't actually spend that money, because I think I probably would have spent that too. This is called Night Parade in merino and tussar silk. And the thing that she's got listed on the back, I'll show you that. 149 grams, 45.40. Now that is a lot to spend on fibre, I will agree. However, the presentation is absolutely stunning. And that's how much you'd pay for a loop bat. And then I'd pay $17, $18 to have that shipped to Australia. So I figured this was an absolute bargain. She is on Etsy. If you are overseas, it is probably going to be economical for you to buy from her as well, because of our exchange rate at the moment, even though postage can be expensive from Australia. I know that. And Rimmle's been looking at this, because I've had it sitting on the table, and he keeps going, oh, I didn't know you could spin angora, bamboo, banana silk. What's banana silk? Camel. You can spin camel? Perhaps we can get a camel. Because he's got this view that one day we're going to have this little hobby farm and have all these animals that I can just get their fibre, which is just beautiful, and I'm really happy that he's got that view. So yeah, it's got tussar silk. What's the difference between that and silk noil and silk hankies and silk waist and sari silk? So it's been good, and I've been able to show him what it is. So yeah, so that is that. That's my precious, and I'm thinking I don't want to leave this for too long, because I don't want it to get squashed or anything. But I've got some other things I need to spin first. So that was all my acquisitions. And I think I probably could have gone crazier. And I know last year I did, but then I also realised that a lot of the stuff from last year I still haven't spun up. There's a burnished bat from Nanny, from the Fibre Master, that I haven't spun up from last year. So I'm thinking I'm not going to buy another one when I've still got one at home. The other thing, at the show, I was handing out little samples, little mini skeins. So here we are. This is one of them. Yes, in the little organza bags. Now, this one I had marked as blue steel, although I also had this one marked as blue steel, and they're totally different. So it may be, I actually think this one's blue steel, and I'm not sure what this one is that I'm putting up in the shop update. I'm going to label it as blue steel, because that's what it's been labelled for the last couple of months. However, I think this one's more a blue steel. So that is that, and that was on the Zoya base. It's actually a bit, there we go, that's it. Not focused, but you can tell what the colours are. So I had that in there with this card, and that was the card I had in with it. Okay? If you couldn't get to Bendi. That is for Australian viewers only. I do apologise. However, there will be a birthday surprise coming up as well in August. So yeah, so that is the card that was in it. Okay? If you also, with orders, for the next bit, I do have these mini skeins made up, and I think I'm going to throw them in with orders. I could keep them for another thing, but I do have a handful left. So the first, I'm not sure how many I've got, the first however many I've got will get one of these included with their order. Okay, I think that's about it. I'm now going to go into the shop update. Okay, so this is the bit that I'm recording earlier. Hopefully this all works out and splices in beautifully. So, shop update stuff. I have today one new base and 2 new colorways to talk about. So, just a minute, let me find, I should have been a bit more prepared. The first new base is going to be called Lugh, which is L-U-G-H. Now, all of my bases are named after solar deities. So, not that's helped me at all because of all the rain we've had over the last few months, but still, they're still named after solar deities. Lugh is going to be replacing Anya. Now, Anya was my first base named after a Celtic saint, so I figured its replacement should also be named after a Celtic saint. So, Lugh is a merino, no it's not, sorry, it's BFL, cashmere and silk. And I can tell you the exact here we are. So it's 70% superwash BFL, 20% silk, 10% cashmere. And it is just beautiful. When I heard about the base, I kind of, at first, I thought, ooh, and then I thought, no, I really love the way the BFLs take up the dye. And I love the MCN. I've actually tried 2 different MCNs. One went out in a club. It was a much thicker twist. I love MCN, don't get me wrong. But this one, with the addition of silk instead of the nylon, and it's not that much more expensive to buy, I thought it was something a bit different, and it was something that appealed to me. So, it is called Lugh, L-U-G-H, as I said, and sorry, I haven't rescanned these, I haven't twisted these properly with my sticks. Now, whilst I was at Bendigo, I'm assuming I've talked about Bendigo. If I haven't, you can slap me across the face when you see me. And that means you need to come and visit me, whoever you are. Someone said, what do you mean with your sticks? So I thought I'd give a demonstration. This is Heartthrob. Okay, this is how I have it here. Normally I would actually semi-reskein it and then I'd take off the ties, but this one today I just don't have time this afternoon to do that, so I want to twist it up. So I put one stick in the bottom and one stick in the top. Now these are just 2 bits of dowel, and you can see, here's me dropping them now. So, one stick in the bottom, one stick in the top, and I can make sure I have all the strands of yarn there, okay? Then I twist like this, and it means I can twist, there we are, that way, opposite twists, and I twist until there's quite a bit of tension in the middle. I then grasp it under my chin, which usually goes in the middle, let it go, it bounces up into a skein, then I make a hole, push the second dowel through, remove the first dowel, and use the second dowel almost like you would a knitting needle or a crochet hook just to hook it through. That's how I skein things usually, and I find it gives me a lot stiffer or a lot tighter skein than if I hadn't done that. For instance, this one I just did with my fingers and it's quite floppy. So there we go. So, okay, Lugh base, 435 yards, 70% superwash BFL, 20% silk, 10% cashmere. It's the sort of yarn you could sleep against. It is really beautiful, unless you have a cashmere or a silk or a BFL allergy, I suppose. And it takes the dye amazingly. So, I have some going up in Heartthrob, which is my traditional red that I've always done, sort of a green, which is a green with sort of a grey-black overwash, and rock face. Now, rock face here is a lot more grey. Sometimes it comes out a lot bluer than this. This one has come out a lot greyer than blue, although in different lights I find this one does show different things. I have it in a floppy skein, which will be reskeined in Genie, which is one of my absolute favourites at the moment. And I'm thinking of doing a sockhead hat out of this for me. What do you reckon? I don't know. I'm still not convinced. Anyway, then I have my new colourway. So my new colourway is pretty special. When I first started dyeing, I had a whole group of people who were exceptionally encouraging, and so much so that it's almost like they're part of the Solar Flair Fibres family. And one of those people adores red, and joked to me at the time that when I had sort of a green, when was I naming a red after her? Well, her time has come. So I will actually defloppify this one. Okay, so I was defloppifying this and the phone rang and it was Imogen and things have changed. So I probably could have recorded a full podcast, but that's okay. I'm still only going to do this. I've got neighbours who are doing renovations, and on both sides I'm on a corner block, so there will be lots of noise around. I present to you Becca's Heart of Gold. Now this is a red. It's paler in parts, and this one of course is on the blue base. But it's sort of got a browny tinge to it, but not really. So Becca's Heart of Gold, I have it in the blue, and I also have a skein going up in the Apollo base. So you can see on the Apollo, it doesn't have the, I suppose the mottled, the same mottledness in the whitey bits that you get sometimes in the cashmere type blends, but it still has the variation and depth of colour in it. You'd use it as a semi-solid, but it does have some tonal bits through it. So that is one of the new colourways, and also on the new base. So I have those going up on the new base. I'm just going to put them here on a chair next to me. I have some others going up in Apollo as well. Now I had a sneak preview, excuse me, I'm just leaning over here, sneak preview last night on Instagram. If you saw that, I posted a photo of this, which is Blue Rocks. Now this hasn't been reskeined this time around. Sometimes I reskein Blue Rocks, sometimes I don't, and I don't know why I do. I know why I do. When you reskein a yarn, it distributes the colour in a very similar way as to what it will be seen in the finished garment. However, when you don't, you can also see the beautiful variations here. So Blue Rocks is actually a blue, which is over-dyed with some sort of grey-black, or actually a couple of blues, and the way it's done, and a couple of different techniques. So I have that in Apollo, Blue Rocks in Apollo. I have Blue Rocks also in the sparkly base, and I've just had a mind blank. The sparkle base is called what? Oh man, you'd think I'd know my own bases, wouldn't you? And I can hear you yelling it out at me. I can hear it. I really can. I'm just having a bit of a blank. Boulder, of course, Boulder base. Because Boulder was a sun god who sparkled. So this is the Boulder base. There you can see the sparkles there. It's got a bit of. There we go. This is a pet-friendly house, which I think people realise. There you can see the variations there. So that's the Boulder base. Now, I also have the rock face, which I showed you in the... it's just my knitting project falling on the ground there. That's my blanket, so it's getting long. I showed you the rock face here in the Lou base. I also have a rock face in Apollo. I love rock face with other colours, and I am going to be knitting a cameo shawl at some stage soon, and I know that rock face is going to be one of the colours. I'm actually thinking I'm going to do it in rock face and Becca's Heart of Gold, so I think those two together would be pretty stunning. So we have rock face going up as well in Apollo. Also in Apollo we have Sort of a Green. I haven't had Sort of a Green for a while, and I know at Bendigo Joyce was wearing her, was it her Lintilla or was it her Margaretha? One of them, anyway, which was out of this and received lots of nice comments. So I have one in the Apollo. I also have one in the Boulder base with sparkles. And again, this hasn't been expertly tied up again, but I really wanted to get something out. I showed you before the Heartthrob in the Loo. I have Heartthrob in Boulder as well. So there you go, that's got the sparkles through it. In the sparkles as well, I put this one in the wrong pot. I'm pretty sure it was going to be a genie and ended up, I plonked it in the wrong pot. So it went in a pot that was going to have blue rocks, but I hadn't tied it up like I tie up blue rocks. I actually tie knots in the yarn to distribute the dye. So on this one, I'm thinking this is going to be a recurring colourway because I kind of like it. Kind of like it a lot actually. It has the blues, but you can see I over-dyed it with some red, a very, very pale mixture of red. So it means that some places have sort of gone purpley, some places have the red, and some places are still quite blue. So I'm going to put this up, and in the next 2 o'clock, in the next 6 hours or so, come up with a name for it so that I can list it to go up in tomorrow morning's update. Now, with those ones out of the, oh no, then I also have 2 skeins on Zoya of Burning Orange. These are actually left over from the Knitpocalypse. I've had them sitting down and I was going to do something with these, but I'm thinking I'm silly. I've got a big enough stash as it is to be then pulling out all these skeins. So 2 skeins of Zoya, which is 2 plies of merino, 1 ply of superwash merino, 400 yards per 100 grams. So there's 2 skeins here, so there's 800 yards, and they're quite nicely matched. I mean, you still alternate them, of course, as you would with most hand-dyed yarns. So there's 2 of those. And then I have 1 in the blue steel in the Zoya base. And that, I mean, that's probably showing quite grey. It's a bit bluer than that. It's not really showing that there, but you'll see that in the photos that go up. And I have a one of a kind now in the Zoya thick base, which is 246 yards per 100 grams. So it's sort of a DK, light worsted, heavy DK. Now the one of a kind colourways, a lot of these were what I called zombie dippers for the ZK. If I had dyes left over, sometimes when I find when I'm dyeing things, especially on a multi-preparational process, I have some dye stock left over in the thing. It's already mixed up. It's hard to tell how much it is, so often I throw it in another tub, throw in some skeins of yarn, sometimes top it up with something else I may have lying around in the fridge. So this was one of those. And you can see there, it's sort of got greeny, bluey parts in it. I'm not too sure. I've got a feeling this one actually may have been a leftover from some dye that I had from another colourway at one stage. Or the other thing, sometimes when I get to the bottom, I keep my dye stocks in plastic tubs in the fridge. Sometimes when I get to the bottom and there's not a lot left, I'll just chuck that in. So there's no science to it. So this is a non-scientific colourway. So that one will also be going up. That would be a fantastic softie because it gives a nice variegation. Okay, so they're all going up. Final thing that's going up is pre-order spots for the latest colourway. Now this is a special colourway. On the, where are we? On the 15th of August, which is only a few weeks away, it will be Solar Flair Fibres' first birthday. And I thought for that, I would dye up a special colourway. And because there is still the code out there, the birthday code from my birthday, that's floating around, I figured that I'd list it before the end of July to give people a chance to use that if they'd like to. If you have used it already, I won't mind if you use it again. So, the colourway is called Fingers in the Icy, and it is a speckled colourway. I have it here. I dyed it up on 3 bases to see, first of all, to see how it would go on the different bases, and then to show you as well the variations. So this started off in a bath of a very, very light grey. And then I went to town with some dye powders. It's a sort of new technique to me, and really, really pleased with how it works. When I dye up confetti cupcake, which is one of my popular ones, which I've got to dye some up for some custom orders, they're coming. When I dye them up, I dye them until they've totally absorbed all the dye from the weak dye that they start in. Then I take them out, wring them out, sprinkle the dry powder over, and pat it in with my gloved hands. So it gives a totally different effect to if I do it in a very low immersion bath of water. So if you've seen Kristen from Skane, seen her fantastic podcast, Skane Studio, you will have seen the episode where she shows how she does it, and of course she does it on the stove. I do mine in the sun, and I was wondering how I was going to do it. Then I was lying in bed one night, and that's I think where I have most of my amazing ideas. And I had this idea that I've got plastic tubs that I use for other things. Why don't I try this as a low immersion in a plastic tub? And I tried it, and I kind of like that it worked. So the 3 bases, I have it in Apollo. This is Fingers in the Icing. So you can see it started off with some grey. You can still see bits of grey there, but there are also speckles of, I can't remember how many other colours I put through it. So there we go. So that is the Apollo base. This is the Boulder base. And there you are, you can see a big speckled bit there. There is a mustardy yellow, where are we there? On that end, you can see that bit there. And of course, where some of the colours blended together, it's gone nice. And again on the Loo base. Now this I think is one of my favourites. And I showed this last night in a VK and had a sale from it already. So that's already there. These will be pre-order spots. I am hoping that they will be ready for postage in 2 weeks, within 2 weeks. So they will be posted by the 15th if you order them this week. I'm just saying that. What was I going to say? I was going to say something. I've forgotten what I was going to say. But still. So they will be up. You can see the 3 of them together there. There we are. And I will take photos of the 3 of them together as well. So that is those. Now, what else? I think that's it with regards to yarn update. It's a shop updates. So the update will be tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock my time, which is Wednesday. You probably won't have seen this if you're in Australia by the time I get it all recorded and get it up. But something may be there, or you may want to do a pre-order. I am also going to be putting up more pre-order slots. Someone said, are you not doing Apollo anymore? And I said, yeah. And she goes, oh, it's just there's no pre-orders available because I've sold out of all the pre-orders. I'm actually going to condense the pre-orders onto one listing, and it'll have a drop-down box where you can choose which base you want to pre-order. I think that's going to be a bit easier. Okay, hopefully I've mentioned everything else I've got running around in my head in the earlier podcast, because I've got notes about it. Anyway, I think that's about it for shop update. So Wednesday tomorrow will be a shop update, and then I'll see how I go. I don't know what day I'm going to keep updates on. Friday's not working because it is Fibre Crafters in the morning, and it's not going to work. And it's taken me almost 12 months to realise that. So I'm thinking it'll be Wednesday or Thursday will be updates. I'm thinking Wednesday's a good day because I can get them out before the end of the week. Anyway, Ninja's here and wants to say hello. You want to say hello? In case I don't have this on later, this is my daybreak, and I'm wearing it because I discovered I'm wearing my t-shirt with the mark right around the neck, the collar line, so I put this on to cover it up. Okay, I think that's about it. Shop update, done. Okay, so that was the shop update. I've just looked at the time. I now have to go and pick up Imogen. I finished this and I went, anyway. There will be no show notes today, I don't think. I'm sorry. I've just got to get this up, and I've got to photograph. I've done most of the photography for the update. I've just got to get all that up now, and the listings. And because there's new colourways, it means I have to be creative and write stuff. So I will be around before next week. As I said in the update, I'm not sure when updates are going to be. I'm thinking Wednesday's not a bad day. I'm also thinking Tuesday might be a better day. We'll see. I want to go back to podcasts on Monday or Tuesday though. But I think that works much better for me. If I go back to podcasting on Monday, and then update on Wednesday. I'm thinking that is what will probably work, but we'll see. The other thing, we've had a Japanese exchange homestay student here for the last week. That was just before I went to Bendi, after I'd had my week from... Anyway, I get the message that they're desperate. I ran into the homestay coordinator from school, the ESL teacher, and she said, English as a second language, sorry, ESL. And she said, oh, we're absolutely desperate. Can you take one? I said, look, I can't because I'm not going to be here for the first 3 days. And she said, oh, if I can find someone to take them for the weekend, can you take one? I said, And I said, okay. So then she said, I'll ring you tomorrow if we need you. I didn't have a phone call from them. And I thought, that's okay. I get home, and on the Monday, I'm catching up with a friend for a coffee, and I get a phone call from school, and it's, I'm just wondering, are you expecting that student tonight or tomorrow? And I said, yeah, I'm not sure. She goes, he's been staying with someone, and they were expecting tomorrow. Is that okay with you? And I said, yes. So Imogen was on camp last week. She went sailing, which was the most amazing experience, she said. Jasper was not very happy about it. He's still not very happy about it because he's been kicked out of his bedroom. And his bedroom's usually an absolute mess. But fortunately it had been tidied up a bit, so I was able to put someone in there. And now he's sure that this person's going and playing with all this stuff. And I'm going, honey, really? If you can find anything in there, he's lucky and he can play with it. Teenage boys, 14-year-old boy. And I said, what do you think he's playing with? My DS. I said, I know he's got his DS. Oh, has he? I said, yeah. Anyway, I really need to stop babbling. So, until next week, I will say, uru, cheers, bye.